It is an unseasonably warm day today, so I definitely was going to go and ride Saoirse. Of course, she's always furthest away of all the horses, so I always have to make out the little trek to get to her. Super, super sunny, and it was melting everything, which does make everything muddy, so I always take the shortcut and go through the run-in shelter just so that I'm not stepping through massive piles of poo. Then I stopped to see if Saoirse wanted some water. You can lead a horse to water, but you certainly cannot make them drink. This is 100% true. Now, for the very first time, grass was exposed. It had been covered in snow and ice, so gotta let the girl get a little grass munch in. And then I brought her across the street to the barn. I cannot get over how sunny and pretty it was this day. Gorgeous! Then we went into the barn. Now, because it's sunny out doesn't mean it's not cold out. However, 40 degrees for January, not going to complain. But it was still pretty cold inside the barn. Unfortunately, the outdoor arena was a skating rink, so I did have to ride her in the indoor. It's not safe to go ice skating with your horse. It's not recommended. So then I had to get her nice and groomed and brushed off because we have had a warm spell. I did not put a blanket on her. The blanket would make her sweat, so a downside, she definitely gets a lot muddier, a lot dirtier. Excuse me, because she is rolling and laying down in her hay, and let's be honest, laying down in her poo as well. So I had to give the girl a good old brush, good old curry. It does take forever. Her coat's super, super thick, and at the moment, it's really, really long. And I don't typically clip her in the winter because in the wintertime, I don't actually ride her hard enough where she'll get super, super sweaty, therefore, indicating that you need to clip your horse. I did rip off her chestnuts. I'm sorry, guys. I cannot help it. I have to take those off once they get even just a few millimeters thick. And I had to go ahead and clean her hooves out, make sure there's not little ice balls underneath because that would be dangerous and we don't want to be dangerous today. Then I grab her saddle, go ahead and toss that on her. Now, I always feel bad whenever I tighten the girth because, like I said, she is a fluffy girl and she's also a little on the rotund side. So I think putting on the girth for her is a lot like putting a belt on. So I do it nice and slow, and I make sure it's as tight on one side as on the other. Then I went ahead, put her bitless bridle on, and we headed to the indoor. Now, this indoor looked like it had just been raked, so it was nice and flat, which is great. Saoirse's kind of a clumsy horse, so a lot of times she stumbles around, so the fact that it had just been raked was awesome. So right here, I'm getting on her. I don't like to immediately get on her and then take off because I think that teaches some horses bad habit that as soon as you get on the horse that you want them to go. So I always let her sit for, I don't know, maybe like 10, 20 seconds before I actually ask her to go. I used to have an issue mounting her where you would put a foot in the stirrup and she'd start to walk off. I think in anticipation of us, starting to ride. So after I asked her to walk, after 20 minutes of just sitting, not 20 minutes, she'd love that. After 20 seconds of not walking as soon as I get on, that problem pretty much went away. So 40 degrees, not bad. Pretty warm for January, but it is still a little bit cold, so you cannot sleep on the warm-up. So we walked in both directions. I also think it's really good to let your horse see what's going on in the arena. Sometimes we have jumps set up. Sometimes there's a pile of horse poo. Sometimes there's, unfortunately, a dead bird. And I think instead of her seeing these things and taking them by surprise while we're doing something more than just walking, I do like to let her have a good old sniff around just so she's acclimated to her bearings. Then we go ahead and trot around. Same thing, working on walk to trot transitions. Trot to walk transitions are great too. All those simple little basic horse things that, in the summertime, if you're working on jumping or trailing, you don't really think about too much. But it's good to get back to the basics in the wintertime. We also were working on our trot to canter transitions because Saoirse's a horse who sometimes she'll just trot faster and faster and faster until she canters, and that is ugly and unbalanced, and it doesn't feel great. So in the wintertime, as you can probably guess, we take it a little bit easy. I don't want her to be breathing in a bunch of frigid air rapidly because that can damage the lining of their upper respiratory tract and then makes them susceptible to illnesses. So I do like to take things slow with her. So when it's a little bit warm out, we're working on those trot to canter and canter to trot transitions is great. Getting back into the swing of things. And I think it's pretty boring to just go around and around in a circle. So I did do this pattern where we go down the center line and then I would have her go left and we go back up to the long side and then we go back down the center line, and this time I changed directions. So she's pretty smart horse. After a while she realized that every time we got down to the end of the center line I wanted her to go left or right. So then I did have to switch that up as well because she got too clever and was figuring out the pattern. So I know a lot of people have horses that are very, very clever like that. You have to switch up the pattern, switch up what you're doing because they anticipate it and then they'll start doing things before you actually ask them to, which is not good. So over in this end of the arena, there's sometimes cats down there, so she can be a little shy, a little scared to, do a nice close to the rail walk, trot, canter. But she was really good today. I don't know if she doesn't dislike cats, but I think the way they move sporadically and they just randomly jump down, they kind of freak her out a little bit if she doesn't see them there first. So she saw them there first and she was actually pretty good. She didn't mind that a couple of them were sleeping over beyond the rail. So as you can probably tell, it's about a minute since we've done some canter work. She gets really, really fast in the canter and sometimes it's hard to get her to slow down. Sometimes it's hard to get her to go back down to a trot as well because she gets so worked up or anticipatory of cantering, because usually when we're cantering, we're also jumping as well. And I think when I ask her to canter without there being jumps in the arena, it kind of throws her off a little bit. But it's good to introduce your horse to new things, have them do different riding activities so that they don't, kind of get the idea of what you're asking them to do and outsmart you, so to speak. I know some horses that as soon as they figure out the pattern are like, oh, you asked me to canter once they get to this corner, and then you asked me to trot once they get to this long side, it can be pretty bad. So teaching her to only do what I ask her to do on cue, it can be pretty easy for me to be like, you know what, we'll canter a few paces early, but I've been trying to do better myself, where if she's doing something I don't want, even just a little bit too soon, to correct her and get her to not do it until I ask. So have to do the walk breaks as well, because I think cantering for an hour is not super nice to do, especially since she's not super, super fit at the moment. It's winter. We're definitely taking it nice and easy. And I also like to lengthen the reins at the walk. Just let her stretch her neck a little bit. And then I like to shorten the reins as well. Now, I noticed with Saoirse, when I would give her a long and low, let her have a little bit of a break, as soon as I would shorten the reins, she would start walking faster. So this particular day is also working on that as well, shortening her reins, but maintaining the pace that we were currently doing. I don't want her to anticipate, when you shorten the reins, this means we're about to, go into a collected walk and then trot and canter. So taking it nice and slow, going back to basics with her. She was really good. She's a really, really good horse. I know everybody thinks that, my horse is the best, and my horse can do no wrong. I actually feel that way very strongly about my horse, and I think that if somebody else had her before me, somebody did, which is how I ended up with her. I just saw the potential in her right away, and I just really, really clicked with her personality. She's just such a curious horse. She's very, very eager to learn, which is fantastic. I know some horses, they can get to a certain point where that's all they're willing to do, but she's a really good horse. She loves learning new things, as do I. So I think we're a pretty good team. So here we took back up the trot, and then I asked her to canter. She didn't canter exactly when I asked her to, and it's like a stride or two later, but when that happens, I do like to make sure that we've got our break. So I asked her to, go back down to the trot. Sometimes when we do certain patterns, she memorizes the gait and where we are in the pattern and what gait I want her to do. So I had to switch it up, and I said, you know what? Instead of cantering down that long side, we'll trot down the center line, and then we'll canter down the long side. And then when we go back down the center line, I'll bring you back to a trot. And I swear, you only have to do the same thing once or twice with her, and she's got it. She knows exactly what the pattern is. So I always have to switch it up and go and be on my toes. So I get off with Saoirse. Now, normally when I get off and the ride is over, I will loosen her girth up and put the stirrups up just so she knows we're done. I didn't at this moment because I thought, you know what? It's pretty warm out. Let's do the cool down. Let's just do a walk around outside since it's nice and warm. It felt like it was at least 10 degrees warmer outside, and we both prefer being outside. It's just such a beautiful day. We went and said hi to the horses. As you can see, the ice skating rink we've got, it's pretty bad out there. So we're not pushing boundaries at the moment. We're not trying to invent a new equestrian sport, equestrian ice skating. That sounds way too dangerous for me. And then I walked her to the gate. Beyond the gate, you could see that there was these big, thick patches of ice. So I said, you know what? We'll avoid that. I don't want to risk anything. I don't want her to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. So we just walked around the front area of the farm just to, do a nice little cool down and be safe at the same time. Actually, in this little spot, she did try to go into that ice pasture, which I don't know if you guys could see, but there is a yellow tractor inside of that pasture. And I was like, I've never seen that in there before. I wonder what they're doing. They were smashing up the ice because it was so thick. The horses that get turned down that pasture literally couldn't get turned down that pasture safely. So they were literally just smashing the ice with I don't even know what that's called, like a metal claw. So then I got off Saoirse, roll up the stirrups, loosen the girth, just to make it super, super clear that we are done. I think she likes to know what's happening, and it helps her to not be anxious or nervous, because sometimes she can be a little nervous, girly. So brought her back in the barn, took her little clothes off, and hung up my bridle, put my saddle back. I am so lazy. I wish I could just throw everything in a pile like I do in my own house. Like, just throw my clothes in a laundry hamper. But no, you gotta hang everything back up to keep it, off the floor, away from the mice. Now, I use thrush powder on Saoirse during this time of the year where it's a little bit muddy because perpetual wetness doesn't do her any favors. She tends to get thrush. Thank you for joining me and Saoirse on this abnormally warm January ride. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.